A man and his loving wife lived in an opulent home on a fine piece of land. This man, a farmer, tended to fields with careful supervision, knowing that without the crops he would have nothing to show his wife and beautiful home. But there was always a good harvest tiding them over, having chosen fertile land. Along with the crops grew a child, an infant at first, but quickly began tripping over his own 2 feet to help his father water the bright, towering cornfields. The farmer was proud of his child, so much that he built a small barn just for him. It was rickety and unstable, nails half pounded into wood, but the child loved it with his tiny heart. The farmer, now father, grew better and better at building barns. 1 more, 2, 3, 4. His family was growing, his wife happy and full. 6 little children were always about the farm, some following in their father's footsteps, and some not, but this was okay. As long as his children were happy, so would he be as well. A 7th on the way, the news came suddenly, but unsurprisingly. The farmer was giddy, already wielding his hammer and boards for the next, and certainly not last, barn. The husband and wife did the usual routine, thinking of names, making room for their newborn, and laughing over their precious little one's excitement of new siblings. Months passed, crops flourished, feet stomped and skipped across stone pathways. His wife is bursting, and the 7th barn is waiting for its newest host. The farmer is prepared, and so is his wife, calming, alerting him at the signs of birth. A doctor is rushed forth, towels and warm water on hand. Night comes, children are put to sleep. A wife screams, a baby cries, and suddenly, there's silence. A death is never easy, not by blood and especially not by love. The farmer loses both. The barn is never filled. The farmer is numb, his children are distant. He doesn't understand. His family is his light, but when he stares at his creations, he sees darkness. The farmer plummets from there. The need to provide for his farm disappeared. The house became messy, and the children forgotten, until he didn't get out of his own bed, his wife's bed, at all. There wasn't a word from his daughters and sons. Did they despise him so quickly for not supplying them with naught they need? Or did they not understand how to approach him? Either way, the hatred stood, his mind cracking. Eventually, it shatters. The events after this moment are unknown to the farmer, but he had all the tools he needed to complete his task. He started with careful ambition. He made a supper, the first one he's made in months, or has it been years? Dusting a bit of the insect repellent inside of the soup would do well enough. The young ones go first, unable to withstand the poison. The ones who hold out are dealt with quickly, the kitchen knife finally finding some use. One manages to get out the door, but turns blue before they can reach the porch, finger marks staining their neck. A shovel is pushed into the ground, overturning the dirt. Each child finds their way into their own barn. 1, 2, 3, 4. The farmer leans over, panting. Stanimal was wearing thin, his lack of muscle catching up to him. The pain would not last much longer. 5 and 6 are dug faster with his thought. 6 barns dug up and refilled. His job is almost done. The 7th barn is empty. He doesn't know how to fill it until a rope catches his eyes. By dawn, no souls are left on the farm. The creak of the noose weighing down on the wooden boards is the only sound within miles. The farmer had finally built the last barn, perfectly stable and, ironically, for himself. With the news of a missing farmer in his family, the land is checked and quickly sold. Bodies are carted out, and despite the secrecy of the occurred deaths, the farm never sells again. Years pass until it's abandoned, all hope dashed that it could ever be restored. No one steps foot on the land until a teacher and his son arrive one night for reasons unknown. Research, entertainment, conspiracy. They're not discovered to tell the tale. They don't return home the next morning. The teacher's wife is quick to report to the authorities. At first, she is hesitant to give away their whereabouts, but admits that they were visiting the local horror sideshow, rumored to have a ghost of a farmer appear after dark. She stayed behind to make dinner when they got home, but the meals would be sitting cold. Police search the farm within hours. A camera is found, then a shoe. The land gives them chills they can't explain. A house stands still and old, seemingly swaying with the wind. Plots are found. It appears that there were buildings here before. 6, the police count. They're small plots with debris left behind. However, one plot is not empty. A 7th building still remains. A barn. The police entered the barn. A man dressed in a clean white shirt and slacks hangs next to a boy from the rafters. Their faces are purple, blood dripping from their fingers from the cuts in their neck. It's deemed a suicide, but the wife is unconvinced. Their bodies are taken away, leaving a widow. The teacher's wife takes matters into her own hands, visiting the 7th barn. She didn't know what she was expecting to find, maybe closure. All she finds, in the dead of night, is a farmer. Pale, practically see-through. A man in loose overalls with red hands, blood trailing to his elbows. He's swinging, but there's no wind. Despite the noose tight around his thick neck, his eyes stare down at the woman, open, unblinking, but focused on her slowing heartbeat. Even though this urban legend isn't always counted as a Halloween urban legend, most stories of this legend say that you must perform this specific chant on the night of Halloween. If you're brave enough, locate a mirror in your house, stand in front of it, and look into it. By repeating Bloody Mary 3 times, a horrific demonic woman will be seen, looking right back at you. From there, she'll reach out from the mirror, grab you, and pull you inside, most likely to your death, or, in some versions of this story, into a parallel universe. One night, a couple had an accident while driving over a bridge in Oxford, Alabama, and their car went over the bridge. Both died in the water below. There isn't just one legend linked with this bridge. There are 2. 1. Parking in the center of the bridge with your headlights off will result in the dead couple becoming visible in the back of your car, leaving your backseat wet when they vanish. 2. The legend that gave the bridge its name, Hell's Gate Bridge. Don't look over your shoulder at the center of the bridge while driving. If you do, you'll see a flaming portal to hell. The cars cannot cross this bridge anymore. It is strongly suggested that you should never cross this bridge by foot either. A boy and his brother visit their grandparents' house with their mother and father. They didn't see their grandparents often, as they lived out in the country, choosing to stay away from city life. The air was clean, and the only noise outside was the wind and the brushing of the tall grass. Eager to explore the unfamiliar area, the 2 boys headed off into the fields. They didn't go out too far to play, as they didn't want to worry their parents, so the country house was still in view. The younger and older brothers ran as fast as they could, fitting in as much play before the day ended. The younger suddenly stops, as he notices his brother freeze, staring into the distance. The sun suddenly felt hot, sitting directly above them. The comforting breeze came to an eerie stop. The younger boy questions his brother. "What are you looking at?" He squints his eyes, but doesn't see anything other than the expansive fields. "That thing," his brother finally answers. "Over there. Don't you see it? The little wisp." The boy looks harder, until he does see it. Following his brother's arms as he points, something white and wriggling in the distance. A sheep? No, that wouldn't make sense. Who'd be drying a single cloth all the way out there? A scarecrow, the boy simply states, though it comes out more like a question. His brother shakes his head, sure of himself. No, it can't be. I'll go get my binoculars. The brother bolts off back to the house, leaving the boy to watch the wisp. It never seemed to stop moving. When his brother returned, he waved the small binoculars held tightly in his hand. Before the boy could ask for a turn to see, his brother put the lenses up to his eyes and stared. The moment the details became clear, the brother froze. His mouth fell open in horror, and the colour drained out of his face faster than the boy could blink. What is it? The boy was hesitant to ask. There it is. There it is. His brother's voice came out raspy, barely above a whisper. It sent chills down the boy's spine. That was not his brother's voice. He continued muttering, lowering the binoculars. His eyes were glazed and unfocused. He wouldn't even look at his younger brother. Turning on his heels, he begins to slowly walk back to the house. The boy nervously follows, knowing something was very wrong. He no longer had the desire to look through the binoculars. His brother reaches the house before him, and as he gets to the door, his grandfather comes out to meet him, face grim. Did you see it? Is his first question. The boy feels fear grow in the center of his chest. How did his grandfather know what was in the field? He shakes his head slowly, and his grandfather sighs with a heavy relief. The two walk into the house, and as they pass the kitchen, his grandfather tries to shoo him past. But the boy sees what's happening. His brother is on the ground, twisting and turning as far as his limbs can go. His bones audibly crack with every intense movement. Laughter poured out of his mouth, hysterical and unending. The boy slowly realizes what's happening when he sees his parents crying by the counter. The older brother had completely lost his mind. The next morning, the family was forced to return home. The boy's brother was tied down and put into the back seat to restrain him. The two sat next to each other, the older squirming painfully. The boy slowly looks over, afraid of what he might see. His brother is still laughing, the piercing sound ringing throughout the car. But as the boy looks closer, he notices something, tears streaming down his face. His brother was crying. Deep in the mainland of China, a young girl and her boyfriend made plans to leave their country and head for Hong Kong. For reasons unknown, the two were desperate to leave, willing to pass through the border illegally. Pulling her long, silky hair into a braid down her back before they left, they went by train, car, and foot until they reached the edge of the country. It was cold and pitch black that night. The glow of the moon was the only light they had. Feet sore and frozen, the girl begged to take the train into Hong Kong. Despite the risk, her boyfriend reluctantly agreed. Getting to the station was easy enough, blending in with the late crowd and city lights. Filing into one of the train cars, the girl sits in relief. Once the two get to Hong Kong, she knows they will have a better life. Falling asleep minutes later on his shoulder, she only wakes once the train makes its third stop to pick up more travellers. Blinking her eyes open blurrily, an unfortunate familiar outfit makes panic rush through her. Police officers checking passports, whether they were actively looking for illegal immigrants or not. The girl was less than eager to deal with them. Not wanting to jeopardize everything she and her boyfriend had worked for, she stands, looking for the nearest exit. She begs her boyfriend to escape with her, but he wants to stay, thinking that if they attract attention to themselves, that they'll be caught no matter what. When he refuses to budge, the girl takes it upon herself to rush out of her seat once the officers come closer. Doors are sealed shut, with the train working back up to its normal speed. With nowhere to go but back, She turns and frantically searches for a way out. Settling on a large window, she quickly shoves it open and crawls out, only thinking about the shooting ground below her as she flies through the air, having jumped from the sill. Her braid, long and flowing, is lost behind her when the window clamps down with gravity. The braid pulls, skin coming with it, ripping off of her sensitive scalp. A spray of blood is left on the grass, torn hair hanging from the outside. With some sense of logic, the girl curls her body, landing on her side. She rolls on the cold, wet grass until hard rock stops her in place. It's dark for a moment, vision flickering. Warmth spreads below her head, soaking her shirt. When she comes to, she understands what it is when she touches pale fingers to a hairless scalp. Her cheeks sting, and when she curiously feels her face, skin from the sides were viciously ripped off as well. Hands soaked red with blood, she stumbles to her feet. She's unsure of where she is, but she figures if she walks towards the lights of the buildings, someone would help her. Blood dripped down onto her shoulders and cloth of her shirt as she walked. The pain makes her vision blur with tears. Eventually, she makes it to an open road, but collapses before she can even call for help. The morning after, students walking down Single Braid Road to their campus found the bloodstains on the sidewalk and a broken girl. Police are called in to clean up the mess. Somewhere else in Hong Kong, the girl's boyfriend steps off the train. The girl had made a good distraction, immediately attracting the attention of the officers. Screams were heard when the girl launched herself out of the moving train. With the climbing panic and terror of the rest of the passengers, the officers thanked them and let the rest go on their way. After some time, he finds a job. Successfully sustaining himself, he doesn't bother to look for his girlfriend or even find out what happened to her. However, she does not wish to be so easily forgotten. A male student, walking from his late classes one night along Single Braid Road, found a girl standing on the spot where she died. Her back was to him, and all he could see was a beautiful, long braid going down her back. When the student called out to her, there was no answer. Warily getting closer, he calls again. Nothing. Finally, deciding to tap on her shoulder, the girl responds. Turning around, the boy was met with a gruesome sight. A blood-covered face with hollowed eye sockets and a broken nose. In place of ears was yanked skin. Her mouth was torn at the side, dripping red from the lips. After a horrified moment of taking her in, she disappeared. No trace of her was left. Students from the campus claim she's appeared multiple times after that, though it is merely rumor, since the broken girl from China will only appear in front of men. This urban legend isn't known outside of its home country of Spain. There is a website that you cannot access and is offline unless you follow and obey the 3 rules. The 3 rules are as followed. 1. You must be alone in your house. 2. Every single light in the house must be turned off. 3. You have to access this website on a moonless night at midnight. Obeying these rules will lead you to the Blind Maiden website, where you'll see quick flashing images of boys and girls. Their fearful faces are missing eyes, and they have their mouths frozen in silent screams. Some text in Spanish will appear on the screen. This website will take you to a whole new level of horror. A horror that will use all 5 of your senses. You must be very careful not to click on anything by accident. You'll be faced with a real experience of absolute horror. Click the accept button to engage actively in the experience. Clicking the decline button will result in you living, but If you click the accept button, you'll observe a silhouette eerily approaching your house, entering, and walking into the room that you're sitting in. Next, on your computer screen, you'll see your own back, and then feel a presence behind you, followed by a tap on your shoulder. The last thing you'll ever see is the blind maiden staring at you, right before you die. There is a legend of the never-ending road, which is a mysterious road in either Corona or California, USA, or in some other tellings of the story, it is in Alberta, Canada. No one quite knows. The road was long, winding, unlit, and surrounded by a thick forest. The road curved around a large canyon, leading people to be scared to ride along the road, even during the daytime. At the point of the road, there is a sharp turn. To make it worse, there isn't even a guardrail dividing the road from the canyon. Those who drive this road at night are never seen from again, because if the road is viewed right, especially at night, it causes an optical illusion. The canyon becomes invisible, and those that drive the road at night end up plummeting off the road into the canyon and to their deaths.